I got an email a few days ago from Hamadia, and there was a fellow who contacted, saw advertised in Hamadia and verschiedene Jewish newspapers that I had written a new book, which I just happened to have with me, on the Indian of Sinas Chinam. So this fellow got in touch with Hamadia to ask if he could phone me and speak to me. And so I picked up his number and I phoned him up, and he said to me, "I see you've written a book in Sinas Chinam." And I said, "Yes." He said, "I've got a terrible matzav just now with Sinas Chinam. Maybe you could help me." So I said, "Well, look, do you have an email?" He says his son's got email. I said, "So if you could give me the Roshi Parokim, if you could tell me roughly what it's about, I'll be able to estimate, whether or not I could possibly be of help." It's an interesting question. He says, "I've got a problem with Sinas Chinam." I mean, who doesn't have a problem with Sinas Chinam? But what did he exactly mean? Anyway, it seems to be he's an older fellow. Instead of being nicely typed, which was easy to read, he sent a letter which was handwritten. It was very hard to read. It was about 5 pages in length. And it came out that it was a story of a machlokus with his children and himself. Half of his children on his side, half on one of his son's side. It was, moreover, a boy side, a heartbreaking thing to read. And of course, when it comes to making a peshara, when there's a machlokus, this is not be'emes really an Inyan of Sinas Chinam. This is just a tragic machlokus which has split a family in two. And if there's going to be any possibility of stitching that tear back together again, both sides would have to be willing to have somebody who's the arbitrator in the middle. They'd have to agree to be held by what he said, and that posh wasn't going to happen. But I have to tell you, I can't go into all the details. It would be unfair, particularly as this is being videoed. But it was heartbreaking to read. It was mamish heartbreaking to read. And it made me think, Taka, the pain that so many Yidden are going through just now in Klal Yisrael. There's a Maisa, which maybe you know this Maisa. I had this many years ago from I think my very good Hasidic friend, Reb David Gottlieb from Or Samir. And the Maisa is a Paladika Maisa. It's got a beautiful anti-Sinas Chinam twist. There's a Maisa, it's supposed to be a Maisa Shahoya, of course. By the time, like broken telephone, you've told over a Maisa Shahoya a few times, it's probably very different to what Shahoya. Afal Pikein was a Maisa with a Yid, and his father, who was a Frum Yid, a Shomer Torah Mitzvahs, a Charedish Yid, was Nifter, and they buried him, gave him a proper Tahara, proper Kavura, and that night his Tata comes to him in a dream and says to him, "You must convert and become a Christian." And so he's very disturbed by that, but Amol, you have a crazy dream. And the next night there's his father again, who's a fine, frum Jew. "You must convert and become a Christian." So he's heartbroken. What's this crazy thing? So he went to see the Vilna Gaon. So he goes to see the Vilna Gaon and he tells him the story, and the Vilna Gaon immediately says, "You'll find that the grave diggers who were going, when they were filling in your father's grave, you'll find that one of them was wearing a tzelem, a cross, around his neck and a chain. You'll find that it fell off when he was digging and fell into the grave. If you dig up the grave, you'll find this tzelem, take it out, and that'll be the end of the story." So, of course, that's what they did. And they found the tzelem, took it away, Gevaldik, went back to tell the Vilna Gaon that what he said was 100% correct. So the Vilna Gaon said, "Go and see how the Hasidim would answer that shaila. Go to Reb Zusha." Now the Vilna Gaon was the Vilna Gaon. But Reb Zusha was known as being a tzaddik gomer. Go and see how he would answer this shaila. I want to see how the Hasidim would do with this one. Don't tell them that I've said anything, just the way that you came to me, go to him. So he goes to Reb Zusha, and he tells Reb Zusha the shaila, and Reb Zusha says, "Come back in 3 days' time." Off he goes, and he comes back in 3 days' time. And Reb Zusha says, "You'll find that one of the non-Jewish grave diggers was wearing a tzelem around his neck. When he was filling in your father's grave, It fell off and it went into the grave. If you dig it up and take it out, everything will be fine. So he went back to the Vilna Gaon and he said, Posh, the exact same thing as you. So the Vilna Gaon said, I know how I paskin that shaila. Go back and tell him in my name, I want to know how he did it. So this was, you need all sorts of koiches which the Vilna Gaon had, and all sorts of ideas that the Vilna Gaon had that he was koishish, that how on earth could Rav Zisha have that? So he went back and he told Rav Zisha that actually this is the whole story. And I went to the Vilna Gaon first. And he immediately told me the exact same thing as you. And he told me to come to tell you the story, to see what you would do with it. And Rav Zisha burst out crying. Oh, he said, if only we had the cop of the Litvaks, said Rav Zisha, I wouldn't have had to fast for 3 days and daven solid for 3 days for the right answer. And when he went back to tell the Vilna Gaon what he said, oh, if only we had the Yirah Shamayim of the Hasidim, we wouldn't have to break our cops going, teeth to find the answers. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story because, as it were, we can tie both sides of what was once a very fabrenta machlokus together and say, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. And I like the story very much. But it also brought it back to me, just like the previous story, that the emes, in the damage that's done to us in this golus is mamish gefährlich. It's really, and often we are utterly unaware of it. My morning chavrusa, in yeshiva, he showed me something which was absolutely pele ploim. He's learning Avodah Zarah in the evening with his evening chavrusa, and they came across. They're learning Avodah Zarah, and they're in Mem Zayin. And in Mem Zayin, the shaila there that the Gemara is discussing is whether you can, the famous shaila of, can you have a no from Avodah Zarah? And the Minchas Yitzchak, Dayan Wise, the Chatzadik Livrocha, was the Av Beis Din in Manchester before he became the Av Beis Din in Yerushalayim, the Charedes. He asked a very interesting shaila in Minchas Yitzchak. I don't know if you've ever considered this, but you're driving along and you want to know what the time is, and you're passing a church, and it's got a big tower, and of course they very often have clocks. Can you look to see what the time is from the clock in the church? Any ideas? Well, it's okay. Some people say yes, some people say no. So whatever you said, you were going to be right. Sof kol sof. He then brings a Maisa, which absolutely, this is fresh from Yeshiva today, Mora Barabai, so you're going to hear this, Maisa Uva. There's a Sefer, I've never heard of this Sefer. There's a Maisa by Rabbi Aaron Kotler. A Maisa by Rabbi Aaron Kotler, the Rosh Yeshiva of Lakewood. That one of the best Bochrim in Lakewood, this is this wonderful Masifta Shas, they've got everything in it, including Mises as well. And so the Bochum is one of the best Bochrim at Ilui in Lakewood. That he's been struggling for a long time with thoughts of kafira, of epicorsis that have been flooding his mind. But Lahamer is datel is not, at least not so. And he's decided he wants to become a Christian. He wants to become a Christian. Rachmon al-Islam. Rosh Yeshiva is Talchel. He tries his best. Imamish Rabara nearly falls off the seat. He doesn't know what to do. He's in such pain that one of the stars of Lakewood, it's like gobbledygook. It's insane. So he says he tried to argue with him, he tried to debate with him, he tried to explain to him, he sends him to the Mashgiach. Nothing works. For Kert, he digs his heels in more, and one of the stars of a yeshiva is going to, the Chil Hashem is incalculable. So he says, Hachlit Rosh Yeshiva Lefanas La'adoyne Mor Rebbe. No, I'm a hopeless Litvak, so I'm going to get this wrong. Kapnitschitz, with a Kapnitschitz, who was a partner, a great tzaddik, and he told them the story. He says, the Rosh Yeshiva says to the Hasidic Rebbe, tell him what to do. And the Hasidic Rebbe says to him, go and ask him how he knows that his watch is right. How he knows that his watch is telling the right time. Now this is, from a Litvischer point of view, a very interesting reaction. If you're a chassid, you'll like this very much. Go and ask him how he knows that his watch is telling the right time. Now, if it was me at that moment, being a Litvak, I would say, what he's telling him is like this. How do you know what's emes? I mean, I'd be emes, this would be my mahalach. How do you know what's emes? No. Go and ask him how he knows that his watch is the right time. So he goes in for his next session to try and matzel this boy. He says, how do you know that your watch is telling the right time? So he says, what? I've got a foolproof technique. He says, what is that? Now, he was talking back in the day. Remember, these days watches are all electronic, they never go wrong, and the Ichweis and the internet and through the air and the luft. But those of us who are a little bit older remember when you had to go squeak, quick, wind them up, etc. And they weren't, unless you spent an absolute fortune or you came from Schweiz, they weren't the best. I mean, if I just say the word Timex, you know what I'm talking about, yeah? It was a bissel schwach, Rabbi Say. And every day or two, you had to move the hands forward a bit. So he said, how do you know your watch? He said, I've got a foolproof method. What's that? He says, because every morning I wake up around about 7 o'clock because I hear the bell chiming in the church tower exactly 7 o'clock. So I know that my watch is if it's a couple of minutes late, I change it. Rabban Kotler says, so Rabban Kotler said, oy bazoi, now I know what the Rebbe meant. Off he goes. And he bought this boy the best watch. I mean, a watch that you would never need to adjust. And he said to him, I'm giving you this, but I want you to promise me one thing. If it does need to be changed, you'll only change your watch, correct your watch, by the clock in the Beis Medrash. Fine, sure, what's the problem? And that was the end of the Apikourses. And that was the end of the Apikourses. Murra, boysai, in a golus, it has an effect on us that you push it, don't even see. There's a Maisa with a stapler going, interesting to Maisa, and I never when I heard the story I thought, and of course he was a Litvak, but it sounded strange. The electricity lines outside his house, the wires made a tzelem, made a cross. It disturbed him. It distressed him. And they actually, because he was such a tzaddik and such a well-known rov, that the Israeli people came, the Israeli electrician guys came, and they changed the directions of the wires so it didn't make a tzelem anymore. So it was disturbing his learning. And it sounded a bit a modern amaisa to me. But be'emes, when you see that taka has effect, this is a more dik amaisa for Baron Kotler. Living in a gosh, this is a shver gosh. It has a shpor which can be niggling, eating away at us, Rachmon l'stan, like yena machle, a yena machle from ruchnius, that can literally be disturbing and distressing and destroying us from within without us even knowing about it. And we once learned together here at Maisa. I was doing a Shabbaton last week, and it was very important to say over this Maisa. I think this is about 2 years ago. In Parshas Vayetze, there's a little shtickle here, and it says Vayetze Yaakov Ragla Vayelech Atz B'nei Kedem. V'yar b'hinei be'er b'sodi. And Yaakov Avinu is going, and he sees a bear b'sodi. V'hinei sham shlosha edritzayin. And the 3 different flocks of sheep that gather there, right similarly, are crouching down by this bear, by this well. Kimina be'er ha'iv, because from that well, Yashka Adorim, all the flocks were watered. Well, Evan Gedola al Pia be'er. There's a great big rock, and Evan Gedola on top of the bear. Safa Shama Kol Adorim. And when all the flocks of sheep and the shepherds arrived there, the Golas Evan were able to roll away this big rock from on top of the water. It bubbled up, and were able to give the sheep to drink. And they put it back in like a stopper, and that kept the water very nicely. And Yaakov said to these shepherds, where are you guys coming from? We come from Chor. Now, if you remember this from 2 years ago, both the Ramban and the Al Shech HaKodesh and the other Meforshim say, this is very interesting. This was a Maisa of Nevius. Now, when we did this, I did it the whole year. I'm not going to go into the whole idea of Nevi'as, because normally how Nevi'as works, we all know, a Navi has like a cholam during the day, has a dream, like a daydream, or at night time, except Moshe Rabbeinu, it was Pe'el Peh, Adaber Bo. But there's another type of Nevi'as, which is Rambam, when he brings this down in Yesodei Torah, doesn't mention, and that is things can happen to a Navi in his or her life, and they know that this is Taka Asimin Min HaShamayim. This comes from Hashem Yisborach himself. So the Ramban and the Al Shulchan Kodesh says that this is exactly what's going on here. The 3 flocks of sheep, he says, refer to either Kohanim, Levim, and Yisraelim, and or it can be the 3 times that Klal Yisrael went up to Yerushalayim. And the sheep, of course, Taka, that's like Klal Yisrael itself. And so he says to the people of the 3 flocks, are there, the 3 shepherds, where are you from? Mechoran anachnu. I'll tell you what that means in a minute. V'yom alehem yadatim es Lovan. Ben Nocher, do you know Lovan? Ben Nocher. V'yom yadanu. V'yom alehem ha-shalom loi. Does he have shalom? V'yom ha-shalom. Hine Rachel bito bo yom tzayim. And Rachel is coming with the tzayim. What's this talking about? So the Ramban and the Al Shulchan say that the big stone that was on top of the Be'er was a gilui, a revelation of the Beis HaMikdash. Because water is a semen for Torah, and the source of the Torah was the Beis HaMikdash, but there was a big rock on top of it. What was the big rock? This refers, he says, to the Churban Bas Rishon. Churban Bas Rishon, what was the big rock that really destroyed our first Beis HaMikdash? That was the Avodah Zarah. So Avodah Zarah, and you know when Chazal, of course, we rebuild the temple, second temple, then at that point the Mitzpalo, Anshe Knesset Gedolah, that is taken away, the taiva for Avodah Zarah is taken away. It's a big rock. But then, what happens is that then they put the rock back. Now it's interesting, there's a diak in the Lashon here. It says, the Gola is a Evan mi alpnei be'er, behishkas is on the water to flock, beheshiva is a Evan. Now it called it an Evan Gedolah before. But now it just calls it an Evan. But the rock goes back. And that's Churban Bas Sheni. What was it that caused Churban Bas Sheni? It wasn't a big rock. It wasn't the Avodah Zarah they could not resist. It was something they could resist, but they put it back. Then he says to them, where are you coming from? Now, in the Heintige Sprache, it sounds very nice. It works very nicely for the Pshat. Because you say to somebody, where are you coming from? What does that mean in the Heindige Sprache? If you ask somebody, where are you coming from? What's your point of view? How do you see things? Where are you coming from? That's what he's asking them. Why are you here? Why are you in this Golos? Mechoran anachnu, choran af. From our anger with each other. He's being shown that this new rock, the second Beis HaMikdash, is going to be destroyed because Jews hating other Jews. And he says, do you know Lovan? Now Lovan, of course, we know, Chazal say, Yeshua says, if your sins are as red as scarlet, I can make them as white as snow. So he says to them, do you know how to cure this? He says, we know. But here comes Rachel. This is scary. Yeah, but here comes Rachel. We'll wait for Rachel Imenu to do it. Somebody else will do it for us. And he says, if you remember the days, it's a very long day. Don't wait for Rachel Imenu. Do something. You do something. So I was thinking, I was giving this shir last week to a Shabbaton, not this shir. I was giving a shir last week to Shabbaton, and something came into my mind. There's the Maisa of Bilam who comes to curse Klal Yisrael, which everybody knows. We just read it a couple of weeks ago. And when Bilam comes to Klal Yisrael, then you know that he chooses places where he feels that even though Hashem Yisborach has already sent a malach to say, don't curse them because they are blessed, he feels that if I move over here, then maybe I'll get away with it. Maybe I'll be able to do it over here. And you remember, because I'll tell us that every place that he moved to was a remez. The place was Meramez where Klal Yisrael did things bad in the past. Now, hold that idea for a second. And he hopes that by hinting to Hashem or reminding Hashem of what they did wrong, that the mazel will change. Now, there's a lot to learn from him. A lot to learn from this fellow Bilam. Because he's right. We know Shina Mokav, Shina Mazel. That there's something to say in this. And maybe at that time it wouldn't work, but maybe another time it'll work. Because I'll talk about that as well. But nothing works. And eventually he turns around and says, Ma toiv olecho Yaakov. He wants to curse Klal Yisrael. Ma toiv olecho Yaakov. There's a ton to say because I'll say what that means. But one of the pshat is that the way that Klal Yisrael set up their houses, or set up their tents, meant that the entranceway didn't look into the entrance of another person's tent. Fine. Now what's that all about? So clearly, Klal Yisrael respected the Yidden, respected the privacy and the individuality of the other people. Fine. Now it's very interesting because that's pum fakir to what they've just experienced in Mitzrayim. Rabbi Dessler points out in Miktam Eliyahu that Paro, the name is the person. Kishma Kain who? Paro comes from the word Perua. Perua means uncovered. It's very interesting, okay? If you think today of societies, or societies where there is, it's a totalitarian society. It's interesting. Do you remember when the Soviet Union, the Soviet bloc collapsed? They found out that the German communists had their own secret police. The Russians had the KGB, and the East Germans had, do you know what it was called? The Stasi. The Stasi. And when the people went in and they got all the records, even though they tried to destroy the records, and they put it all together, hundreds of people spent years doing this, they found out that the Stasi were paying German citizens, ordinary German citizens, to spy on other German citizens. Any idea what percentage of the East German population were spying on behalf of the Stasi? Any idea? Well, you're going to love this. See, the Germans are very good. When the fascists, they're the most verbrennte fascists. When the communists are the most verbrennte communists. 50% of the East Germans were spying the other 50%. 50%! Every second German was spying on every other German. And Taka, because in a society where the person is not allowed to have any individuality, where everything is seen like North Korea, and China is apparently the most surveilled society now in the world, there's no possibility of individuality. By not having somebody's tent, looking at somebody else's tent, you're saying, you have your life and I have my life, because you can be an individual. And it must have struck, I think, it must have struck Bilam that when he was told to come and curse Klal Yisrael, this was going to be, v'mazogen, a piece of cake. Because he's already cursed Klal Yisrael. Because he knows our weaknesses. He already was incredibly successful in exploiting our weaknesses, because Paro's Baal Eitzah, who came up with the whole idea of getting us to get in trouble in the first place, was Balaam, who said, you know what to do? You know what? You want to get these Eden? Because if you really hate Eden, you're really anti-Semitic, if you really hate Jews, and you want to really destroy them and get rid of them, be nice to them. Be nice to them. And it's the societies that were the nicest, and like America, or where I come from in the UK, particularly Scotland, the countries that have been, or in Holland has come out not one Dutch guy who doesn't have some Jewish blood. The Dutch have been nice to Jews for hundreds and hundreds of years. But if you're really nice to Jews, that's when we got lost and we disappear. So B'kitzur, the idea was to be nice to them, to destroy them, and it nearly worked. 4/5 completely destroyed because of the eights of Balaam. He knows our Achilles heel, v'mazogen. He knows how to get us. He's done it before. This is going to be good. This is going to be easy. And suddenly he finds, look, their doors of their tents don't look at each other's doors. That's a pella! Because they came from a place where there was no individuality. Where the king can control everybody. Nobody's an individual. They're all like worker ants or worker bees. They just got a function to do. And you can't be different. But Taka Klal Yisrael is different. And he must have said, how did they change? In such a short space of time, how did they change? The Klal Yisrael and Yidden are all about changing. And it's a peladik azach. I mean, just think of some of the great heroes of Klal Yisrael. How about Rabbi Akiva? How about Rabbi Akiva? Well, we all know the famous story about Rabbi Akiva. The rock, and then the water hitting it, and maybe this could have an impact on me. But obviously, Rabbi Nosson says he went with his son. That's before he got married to Rachel, he was already married. He went with his son, he sits on the ground, on his bottom on the ground, which is how the little kids learn. He had a slate, not an iPad, and that's how they made letters, and the Rebbe showed him what the Aleph looks like. That's an Aleph. That's how little he knew. And this is a base. And obviously the Rebbe Nosson says after he learned the Aleph base, and he mastered the Aleph base, then he said to the Rebbe, why is the base that shape? Why is the base that shape? And you know that there's a reason why the letters are the shape that they are. He wanted to know why. And after he masters the Aleph base, then he goes on to Chumash. And then again, why is it in the past tense when it should be in the future tense? Why is it the singular when it should be in the plural? Why is it the masculine when it should be in the feminine? And then he same cop he brings to the Mishnah and the Gemara, etc., and he became the great Rabbi Akiva, which is a beautiful story. What was he like before? He was repulsive. I would not let that man in my house. He hated Frum Yidden, and Svarim say he was the leader of the anti-Frum party in Eretz Yisrael at the time. He said it himself. I hated Frum Yidden so much I wanted to bite them, not the way that a dog bites, it only tears flesh, but the way a donkey bites, because it tears flesh and breaks bones. Have you ever hated anybody so much you wanted to break their bones? He did. He wasn't nice. How about Reish Lakish? Now, Reish Lakish is a Baal Tshuva, a real Baal Tshuva. He was a rabbi beforehand, incidentally, went off, and then comes back. Now, for those who had any exposure to the non-Jewish world, you might have heard of somebody called Robin Hood. Robin Hood was supposed to live in England. He stole from the rich and gave to the poor. Oh, that's very nice. Reish Lakish wasn't like that, right? Reish Lakish, and when he stole from you didn't come up and say, oh, by any chance do you have a wallet? Any money in your wallet? Because I think you should give it to me. And he didn't sort of sneak, he wasn't a sneak thief. He was a thug! He mugged people. Boof. And then he became Reish Lakish. Or Elisha ben Avua, who, when he eventually dies after he does tshuva, the Baskal says, Rabbi Elisha ben Avua, then he was totally meshukah in the most disgusting things you could possibly imagine. And we call him Evin Yovin. Or how about Rochav, who was a Zayna for 40 years, to keep it very simple. And yet she becomes the queen of Klal Yisrael, the wife of Yeshua. Because Klal Yisrael is all about changing. And when Yaakov sees this well, and he sees, and it's a Nevi'us, and he says, aren't you going to roll away that rock? We're waiting for Rachel. Rachel's coming. She'll do it for us. The time to do it is now. Yeah. And because Klal Yisrael changes, you've got to know that we can do it. I want to tell you something, mamish peladik. I tried to find this in this. I found it from a friend of mine who said it in a shir, somebody called Rechiel Spiro, but he wasn't able to find me the source that he quotes here. The Ramah from Mepano. He says an astonishing thing. He lived in Italy in the 1500s, and he was Makubal. And he says a peladik zach. I'm going to read this to you. Astonishing thing. So he says that when Neshama comes down to this world, Hashem chooses. He takes the neshama from under the Kisei Kovan, and then he takes the neshama to an aron, to a big aron, and he takes them inside. And inside, there are all sorts of bodies. Choose your body, he says to the neshama. Choose your body. You get to choose. That means choose the life. Choose the life that you want. Rabbeinu Bechaya says the same thing when he's talking about the Makkah, and this in Parshat Kiteitzei. Then he says the following thing: HaKadosh Baruch Hu yodim bereishis abriya kol inyonim kulam v'kol hamikrayim asidim lavolayim. Hashem knows exactly what's going to happen in the world. He says to Neshama, I want to tell you what sort of life you're going to have down here. I'm going to tell you what sort of life you're going to have. And for some, it's funny, I was learning with my Kavrusa, this was like yesterday. And when we were learning this, I showed him this. And I said, so for example, like in your case, he's called Rabbi Yitzchak Young, a very fine Talmud Chacham, and his wife died of Vienna Machla. So he would say, look, in your life, you're going to have a tough time. You're going to be very happily married, and your wife's going to die of cancer. As a matter of fact, so did mine. I said, in your case, because you've got a sick daughter, and at the moment, one of my kids is sick. So, but that's what you're going to be shown. So when you were upstairs, all of us were upstairs, then Hashem Yisborach is going to show you the goof. That means it's the same thing. It's going to show you what sort of life you're going to have. Sometimes you get similar life to somebody else, like he and I have. Even end up chavrusas. But Hashem says to him, and this is what's going to happen to you, and this is what's going to happen, and you choose. The Ramon Mipano says, now choose which one you want. You get choices. You can have that life, or you can have that life, or that life. You're going to go downstairs, and that being downstairs is going to be a tikkun for whatever your neshama needs to be mitaken. However, astonishingly, you get to choose whichever. There are several ways to allow that to happen. An astonishing idea. The astonishing thing of the idea is, and of course, to put it into non-Kabbalistic terms, the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't give you a sign that you can't pass. He showed all of us when we were up there, you can pass this Nisayan. This is what's going to happen to you. And you choose, okay, I'll have that one. I'll go in that direction. That means that even though when life is sometimes extremely tough for all of us, but it gives you chizuk. The Rebbeinu Shalom is, as it were, Makdim Refuah Lamaka, the Rebbeinu Shalom has already let you know that you can pass this test. Do you know why? Not because he chose it for you, because you chose it for you. So Klal Yisrael can change. It's just, do you want to change? Do we want to change? So, the problem with Tisha B'Av is that it's not so much in America, but certainly I know when I used to live in England, we don't have big long summer vacations like they have here in camps and going to the mountains and stuff like that, going to the country. Then the summer vacation is only 3 weeks. It's from Motzei Tisha B'Av until really Rosh Chodesh Elul. So it's a 2 week, maybe 3 week window, and people go away. And I have to admit that particularly when I was living there, same with my children, same with every Haredi Yid, the big high spot in the year is when you go away for the family vacation. And the problem is that Tisha B'Av is just right before then. And so really, of course, you're taking Tisha B'Av seriously, but at the back of your mind, you're thinking, and soon I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and then I'm going to pack our bags, and then we're going off for our vacation. Yes! Gewaldig! And the problem is that you can turn Tisha B'Av into a Purim. Because in Purim we dress up. You could be a king in Purim. Or you could be a doctor or a nurse or whatever people dress up as on Purim. And the whole thing just becomes a spiel where you can dress up in Tisha B'Av as well. The costume, gentlemen, for your Tisha B'Av costume and Tisha B'Av fun is going to be, it's very exciting. You get to sit on the floor. Look, really good. And okay, so the food's not so good. In fact, the food's not there at all. But you got to wear nice sneakers and so you wear a costume, but it can really be, there's just a spiel. There's just a spiel. So in this new book, one of the things inside the book is a translation of the Chofetz Chaim Sefer Ahavas Yisrael. So I want to read to you, it's just 2 pages, what the Chofetz Chaim says about what we're talking about now. But just before I take you into it, let me just remind you what we said. That already Yaakov Avinu was shown that Taka, we could stop this Golus now. We don't have to wait to Rachel Imenadam for us. We don't have to wait for the Mashiach. We can stop this Golus now. We can deal with Sinas Chinam, which is the reason we're here now. And if we stop, like everything, we stop the reason that caused the Golus, then the Golus disappears. So you don't have to wait. And when Chazal already saying the Gemara, let the Mashiach come soon, but don't let me be alive to see it, because oy vey, it's not going to be a pleasant time. So we can stop it now. Listen to what he says. Let's investigate the factors that cause Sinas Chinam. And he says there are several main causes, and we will consider them one by one. He gives you 4. 4. It was chapter 3 of Ahavas Yisrael. Most Sinas Chinam stems from various forms of jealousy that people feel towards each other. Nod if this is ringing bells with you. Yes? 1. A. You feel jealous of another because he perceives them having more money and more possessions. Ever come across somebody who's jealous of somebody because they're richer than them? He sees that everything Hashem gives to him grows and prospers, and that causes the jealousy, which metastasizes into hatred. That's the first thing, says the Chofetz Chaim. 2. You see that a competitor in business has more talent, Maybe you're a doctor, maybe you're an accountant, maybe you're a lawyer, and somebody's a better doctor, accountant, or lawyer than you, or a better businessman. He's more talent or acumen for his craft or profession, consequently gains a better reputation. And that causes another person to feel jealous. And again, this morphs into hatred. C. 3. Another cause of jealousy is when someone sees that another person is given more covet than he is. Right? You feel that you should get covet as well. You know you're a good fellow. Why is he getting all the covet? And D. 4. Sometimes a person sees that someone has better midas and a better personality, more chen than you have, and you feel jealous of that. Okay, that, says the Chofetz Chaim, are the 4 main drivers of jealousy, which very soon becomes hatred and sinas chinam. So he says, and this is just one page, so hold in there. He says these 4, because this is serious, let's learn just a little bit together. In the first case, when jealousy is the product of another's material success, we need to recall that Hashem gives that kind of success, makes a person rich for one of 2 reasons. The first is Hashem knows the person's teva, and the person he sent wealth to, and he's certain that the person is kind and philanthropic and will use the money to help poor people or people who are suffering in other ways. This person is in fact like an agent or a CEO of a company Hashem has set up called Chesed to generate wealth to help other poor people. That means that Hashem has chosen to give him this role as an opportunity to help others and benefit himself as a consequence. The second reason Hashem might give someone wealth is that the person might be living a bad life. And though he might have done some mitzvahs, Hashem is going to give you some wealth now because he's not going to give you anything upstairs. So versteht sich, he says, if it's the case that somebody's extremely rich, do you know any, I'm sure this applies to half the people here, do you know any, well probably those who are extremely rich, is it pleasant being extremely, do you know any really extremely rich people? I'm afraid extremely poor people, and I'm not criticizing them, usually drive them completely nuts. There's a fellow called Aaron Wilson who davens in Shor Yoshev. There's a flock of people begging him every day and driving him nuts, and sometimes they don't do it very nicely. There's a wonderful fellow in Los Angeles called Barry Wise. I'm not sure I would be very good at this. I'm not sure if I would be able to check all the boxes of my responsibility as the CEO of Hashem's company of Chesed. And if he says, the Chofetz Chaim, you find somebody who's rich because Hashem is giving him the reward in this world to stop him having it in the next world, you'd have to be completely nuts to be jealous of that. Because you're going to get an honorable ball. He's not getting an honorable. That's why he's rich here. So that would take care of why you shouldn't be jealous of somebody who's rich. The second reason, where hatred grows from a jealousy of another's success in business field, which will take away from my geschäft. He's opened another store just down the street, the same as my geschäft. It's going to take away. Moreover, a boy says the Chofetz Chaim, aren't we maminim? Don't we know that everything that the Rabban Shalom wants us to have is already a geyser from Rosh Hashanah? Don't you know that you can't have 1 penny more than he wants you to have? Nor can anybody take away a penny from you that Hashem wants you to have, even if there's 5 stores selling the same product that you're selling. Don't we believe that? So that we've now knocked out 2 of the reasons, the most common reasons, that grow sinas chinam. In the case of the third reason, jealousy grows because somebody gets more covet. Well, Chazal say that the person only gets covet because Hashem wants them to get covet. So why are you jealous of that? Hashem wants that. You're challenging Hashem now. The person has got a nice reputation, is given covet, and people like him, and you're upset about that. And you're upset with Hashem. Why don't you give it to me? Because I'm the Rabban Shalom. I want him to have it. And the fourth source of jealousy, he writes, is one is envious of another's character traits. I'll read this bit to you. This is truly enormous and unequaled stupidity, says the Chofetz Chaim. Although that's my translation, so maybe he wouldn't have said it quite as harshly. How can a person be criticized or disparaged because Hashem has given them a pleasing personality and good midos? He was given them because Hashem deems them worthy of them. One can have no basis at all to hate somebody because he is the way Hashem made them. In conclusion, writes the Chofetz Chaim, review our words here again and again. And assuming that a person believes in the wisdom and the truth of the words of Chazal, there's only one conclusion he can reach: these 4 elements from which sinas chinam grow, like any basis in truth whatsoever, and they are truly chinam. Now, if you ask anybody who suffers from Sinas Chinam why you hate Yenim, he'll have a whole ton of reasons. But these are they. That's how it starts. Of course, they'll rationalize it and tell you that the guy who's rich is also a nasty person, etc. But the root cause of it is these things here. And that's why it's called Chinam. Nobody, unless you're a complete mental case, nobody hates somebody for no reason. You've got reasons, but the reasons are Chinam. So the Chofetz Chaim says you've got to read this, you've got to go over it again and again. You don't have to buy my book. But Ahavas Yisrael is a wonderful book to learn at this time of year. Talmud Devorah, the first paragraph of Talmud Devorah, which is also translated there, that's another wonderful tikkur this time of the year. Shar B'Tolchen, reminding you of Hashem's place in your life and your place in His world, is another great help to stop you growing in the wrong direction, being jealous of somebody. And Taka, with so much sorrow in family, so much threats hanging over our heads, so much threats hanging over where the majority of Klal Yisrael lives just now, which is Eretz Yisrael. Isn't it time that we stopped waiting for somebody else to do something and did it ourselves? The Chofetz Chaim says, read my words over again and again. It's not just you read the book, then it's a Purim spiel. You sit down and you check the box, right? I'm wearing my sneakers. Yeah, I'm not wearing a tie. I'm not, I've not had a shower. I'm not drinking. I've checked all the boxes. Good. Let's go on vacation. Because that's not working. It has to be an avoider. If we take 6 million Yidden killed by the Nazis seriously, if we take Ahmadinejad and his chevra and Sheikh Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah in Lebanon, who says he's a Zionist. Interesting. He said, oh yes, he's a Zionist. He wants all of Klal Yisrael to move to Eretz Yisrael so he can finish us with one bomb. And they mean it. If we take that seriously, then it's not a question of turning it into a Purim spiel. It's an avoider. It's learning about it. It's putting it into practice. It's taking it seriously. So let's not make this Tisha B'Av a Purim spiel. Let's make it V'Mazogan the real deal. Get hold of the various forum, go to the shiurim that talk about this, and make practical changes that changes you so that the sickness of Sinas Chinam is something we're aware of how it starts, so when it starts, you stop it right at the beginning and do your bit to make sure that we build our base of Mikdash b'meher b'yameinu amen.